All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of I Quit My Band. My name is Nate. As you can see, I'm in the reaction zone. I'm in my own bone zone. I've upgraded to a camera, specifically my wife's camera. I did not buy one on my own. As you can tell by the title, I'm doing a little tier list episode, kind of in honor of Brent Hinds, who just recently passed away. If you don't know, Brent Hinds was the lead guitarist, or one of the guitarists of the band Mastodon, and one of my favorite guitarists, or just one of my favorite musicians ever. It's just really sad. He passed away in a motorcycle accident a few weeks ago. And yeah, it's such a bummer because he was just such a unique musician in every possible way, especially as a guitar player. And I think his background came from bluegrass playing and playing on a banjo before he actually played guitar, and you can really tell that in just everything that he did with Mastodon. I mean, there's so many songs where you can tell like just his very unique style of playing, like Divinations off of Crack the Sky or something, I don't even know, not even one of their better songs, but Aunt Lisa off of Once More Around the Sun. He was just such a unique player and such a unique vocalist as well. I mean, his vocal shrieks were kind of what made, to me at least, is what gave Mastodon that kind of edge. Like, you had Troy kind of doing the Viking vocal. You had Bill filling in with some growls. You had Braun doing the clean vocals, and then when Brent came in, it was like, he did like a pig squeal. That was the most badass thing, and I can't believe I kind of just fucking nailed it on camera. Let me see if I can do it again. That's kind of the Brent Hinds approach. When that vocal was mixed in with Bill Kelleher's like kind of growl, especially on songs like Blood and Thunder, in some live performances, it was like two fucking worlds coming together and making something just so crazy. It was like that scene in Scott Pilgrim versus the World where they're doing the band battle, and like the music of both bands kind of forms some beast, that they fight. But instead of fighting, it was like making love with Mastodon. Maybe that's too weird to say, but I said it. I think a lot of people know, too, Brent was either left or was kicked out of Mastodon, I think, last year at some point. I was always kind of hopeful that Brent Hinds would rejoin Mastodon at some point. It always felt like maybe it was just a misunderstanding and, down the road that they would kind of make up and settle their differences and get back together. Because to me, just Mastodon is just not complete without Brent on vocals and on guitar. I mean, he is just what gave them an edge to me. And if he was upset about the current output that they put out, I mean, I can kind of see it. That's kind of the reason I'm making this video. I mean, I haven't been too pleased with Mastodon's output in the later years, but I'm kind of curious to see what other Mastodon fans feel about the later era output of Mastodon. So that's why I'm making this video. We're going to rank all 8 Mastodon records on a tier list. So let's get going. Let's just start it off. Why not, right? First record in Mastodon's discography is Remission. One of the most intense records that they have, if not maybe the most intense. As a first record, I think it kind of makes sense because it's the most like messy, chaotic, we don't give a fuck whatsoever type of record. It has some of their heaviest and scariest sounding songs. I mean, if I was another metal band during the time when this came out, like in 2002, I'd be like, these guys are on fucking steroids or something, because I don't know how they're getting these sounds. I don't know how they're making the noises that are coming out of their faces, And the music is so punishing. I mean, the riffs on this record and the songs are so unbelievable. It starts off with Crusher Destroyer, which is just the most fitting title you could think of. March of the Fire Ants, Where Strides the Behemoth, Workhorse, Mother Puncher. I mean, I don't know if you could tell, but Mother Puncher is a pretty fucking insane song if you haven't heard it. I mean, they're gonna fucking punch your mom, dude. That's what the song sounds like. It sounds like your mom getting punched in the face so hard that you feel it because you came out of her and you're also punched in the face. So while I don't think this is a perfect record, I think it's like incredible. And I think it's not where I would tell someone to start with Mastodon if they were going to get into Mastodon. But it's like, one of the most intense and crushing debuts for a metal band. I'm gonna put it at A. Next, I'm gonna move on to Leviathan, their second record. Leviathan for me is kind of like, and probably for a lot of other people, kind of like the brother to Remission. They're very similar records, but I think Leviathan kind of pulls back a little bit in terms of like intensity. It's a tiny bit more accessible. It starts to feel like they're kind of understanding how to like, write metal songs for a wider audience. Like Blood and Thunder is probably one of their most famous song, but it's still fucking just so kick-ass. Like I said, that chorus, just the what? I mean, it's monstrous. And you also have songs like Island, probably one of their best like deep cuts, Naked Burn, Aqua Dementia, Joseph Merrick. I think this is like, if not, this is probably their most close to perfect record without being a record that's like incredibly expansive. I mean, there is like a 13 and a half minute long song on here. But I wouldn't say it's also like Crack the Sky-ish. But I would probably give it an S tier for special. So let's put Leviathan at the S. I think that makes sense. That makes sense for me. Then we're going to move on to their third record, Blood Mountain. Blood Mountain is, without a doubt, my favorite Mastodon record. I think it's probably the most, like, head bangable, but also, like, kind of the craziest. I mean, the concept behind this record is wild. I'm pretty sure it's about, being on this like jungle planet and running into, different things like, Sasquatches. I'm not sure what that is, but it's one of the tracks on this record. And colonies of birchmen. I'm not sure what that is either. But I mean, it feels like that. It feels like being trapped on some unknown planet and dealing with just like the most horrifying, things of nature you've ever seen in your life. Like the first track, The Wolf is Loose, literally feels like just you're being like dropped from a cage into like the jungle or the sea or something, and you just have to fend for yourself because it just starts off so violently. Then Crystal Skull, Sleeping Giant, kind of an expansive song. It just feels like it feels like you're dealing with fucking, like Dark Narnia or something like that. You're just fucking fighting demons, fighting monsters. What's that movie, that dumbass movie, Clash of the Titans? Shit movie, but I mean, if you put Blood Mountain as the soundtrack to Clash of the Titans, I mean, it'd probably be a pretty sick movie. I don't know. It has some of my favorite Mastodon moments ever, which probably the best one, Circle of Sasquatch. Circle of Sasquatch has the coolest riff. It sounds like being shot with arrows or something, and then you get the Sasquatch part where they do the Sasquatch voice, I am all around you. Like it's not even close to that, but like super fucking cool. Some of my favorite Brent Hinds moments as well. I mean, and some of my favorite Mastodon riffs, Crystal Skull, The Wolf is Loose. Capillary and Crest, not one of my favorite Mastodon songs, but one of the most memorable just because of the Brent Hinds vocal. Just the Capillary, all right. I don't even know what he says, and then it gets in I feel like I'm nailing Brent Hinds impressions right now, just left and right. I don't know what the fuck is happening to me right now, but the spirit of Brent is within me and in this. I can feel Brent in this zone tonight. Well, we got to rank it. So I'm putting Blood Mountain at A. I don't think I would tell someone to start with Blood Mountain. If there was a Mastodon record that I would tell someone to start with, it would be Blood Mountain. But I don't think it's like, you know, on the level of Leviathan or the next record that we're going to talk about in terms of like artistic expansion and kind of saying something more and kind of being like the jewel in a band's discography, which is kind of exactly what the next record is, Crack the Sky. Crack the Sky, well, I just said Blood Mountain's my favorite Mastodon record, and Crack the Sky is not my favorite, but I think it is like the best. I think it's just kind of where they perfected what they do, you know. It's so expansive. The story is wild. I think it was also a tribute to Bron Daler's sister, but I think there's also another story about like a paraplegic boy in communist Russia, like Rasputin era Russia. I'm not even sure. Fucking wild shit. But I mean, some of the songs are just so like, you can tell that it's more than just a song, you know, like Oblivion. It just feels so harrowing. Same with Quintessence, Ghost of Corellia, Crack the Sky especially. But then you have, you know, the expansive, the Czar right in the middle of the record, 10 minutes, and it's split into different, you know, sections, Usurper, Escape, Martyr, and Spiral. So yeah, I think this is kind of like the prettiest and really where they're showing off like why Mastodon, why they were so special as a band. While I wouldn't say it's my favorite or it's where you should start if you're just getting into Mastodon, I think it's definitely like maybe the second place you should go. You know, if you really want to like sit with headphones in your bed and just fucking feel depressed, that's the one for you. I think Crack the Sky is definitely an S tier album. Then we're gonna move on to what I like to call the Foo Fighters era of Mastodon, where Brent Hinds and Troy and Bill is never like huge with the vocals, but they kind of start taking a back seat with vocals, and Bron, the drummer, Bron Daler, starts being more utilized as like the lead vocalist on a lot of tracks. And they were doing that on Crack the Sky as well. I mean, it's not like he was never singing, but I just felt like when the Hunter era came about, we were hearing a lot more from Bron on lead vocals, doing the Phil Collins thing. It's not like this record is bad. I just feel like it feels so radio friendly. You know, and everything I knew about Mastodon up until this point was that they were so not radio friendly. And following up Crack the Sky with this just feels really strange. It feels like we didn't know how to top it, so we didn't try to top it. You know, we tried to do something completely different. The songs are kind of just goofy. Some of them are really neat, but some of them feel goofy. The Curl of the Burl, fun song, kind of goofy. Black Tongue's a pretty good opener. But then, like, Blasteroid and Stargasm, while they're in intense songs, I just don't feel like they're saying much. Octopus Has No Friends and Creature Lives are kind of, you know, neat, like, weirdo songs that don't really fit with what Mastodon had done up to that point. And then, you know, Dry Bone Valley is a pretty nice Bron-fronted song. It's not bad, but, yeah, it's just not, I don't know. I don't fuck with it. It's... When it first came out, I dug it, but yeah, like for how like poppy they kind of went and how structured they went, it's kind of just, it feels like a thorn in the side of Mastodon releases. I'm going to put it at C, and that's almost a B. I'll just say it's almost a B, but I'm going to give it a C. Next album in the Mastodon discography is Once More Around the Sun. I remember when this record came out, and I was disappointed with it then, and I really have not come back to it since. This record, to me, feels the most all over the place and directionless when it comes to Mastodon records. I felt like they always had kind of a pretty good theme and story behind what they were doing. But this one feels like, to me, it feels more like ideas and riffs rather than it does songs. There's some cool songs off of it. High Road is pretty intense. You know, The Motherlode isn't bad. Aunt Lisa, I brought that up earlier. It's kind of the craziest song on the record in my opinion, but it feels still like just a riff. And then you got some songs that have like these kind of big cheesy choruses like Ember City and I can't even remember, Once More Round the Sun. Chimes at Midnight and Diamond in the Witch House aren't bad, but I don't know, like it still feels like they have these melodies that they want to follow, these like pop written melodies where you can kind of tell where they're going and I felt like the excitement of Mastodon before was that like these songs were just kind of taking you on these crazy fucking adventures, and that's why they were a prog metal band. They were considered a prog metal band, and this doesn't feel prog metal. This feels like hard rock that has a tinge of metal. And The Hunter was a lot that way too. But I feel like The Hunter had more memorable songs. These are not as memorable to me. I'm going to solidly give Once More Around the Sun a C on the list. And that's not, it might be a B. No, it's a C. Next, we're going to move on to Emperor of Sand. This record came out in 2017, and I really don't like it. And I still don't like it. Yeah. It was tough hearing the first single to this record and kind of being reassured of, like, what you thought might have been happening a little bit on the past couple records. Kind of just feel so realized with Show Yourself as the first single. I really hate Show Yourself as a song. I don't find really one redeeming quality about it. I really just hate the lyrics. I don't like Braun's vocal delivery. I don't like the riff. It sounds like a Foo Fighters song. It sounds like Foo Fighters and Josh Homme did a collab song that was like for a video game, and they never talk about it anymore, and they both got a pretty good, payout from it. While Show Yourself is kind of the biggest yuck point on this record, I really only feel like strongly about two other songs. I mean, Sultan's Curse is pretty good, and Scorpion Breath is the only other song that I actually truly like, and I think that's a Scott Kelly fronted song. But like people, kind of were going nuts for like Precious Stones and Steam Breather. I kind of saw that Steam Breather became like a live favorite, and I just don't see it. I don't know. I just find it kind of boring. I just find it, I don't know, like we're just treading water, and it just feels so sterile, and it feels like they wanted to maintain being a metal band, but they wanted to get on the radio as well, and they wanted to be more accessible to more fans that were not into like Converge or like Lamb of God, but fans that were into like Royal Blood and Foo Fighters and like, I don't know, Death from Above, 1979, like all bands that are not like, I mean, I've been fans of all of those bands at some points in my life. I'm still a huge Death from Above 1979 fan, but it wasn't, Mastodon was kind of, always on the heavier side and the more interesting side of all that. And, I'm still, every time I look at this record, I just feel like, pain in the heart. It's just not up to par, man. It's just, it felt like it was gonna be because they had like the look of the past records of the album cover. And I remember Sultan's Curse was also a single, and I was like, okay, there's some melody in this one, but they're not, it feel. I think Brent has a part in the chorus, on this song. He has a vocal part. But then getting Show Yourself, I was like, all right, this is flush it down the toilet. You know what I mean? I'm gonna put this one solidly at a D. Emperor of Sand at a D. Just not into it. Just couldn't be. Could never be into it. I'm not gonna talk about B-sides and rarities. We're gonna move on to their last record, Hushed and Grim. This record to me just feels way too dense. It's 15 tracks. I remember listening to it and not really getting much out of it. It still felt so Braun focused. So I don't want that in my Mastodon. I want more That's like the fourth time I've done that on this, so I apologize. While this record was like kind of expansive, kind of huge, I just didn't feel like I connected with most of these songs. Pain with an Anchor, not bad, but still too much brawn. More Than I Can Chew, still too much brawn. More, I think more brawn means less bite. You know what I'm saying? At least to me. And I don't, I'm sorry to say that to Brian. He's an amazing drummer. He's never let up with his chops as a drummer, or his drums have never suffered because of his vocals. So I will give him that. He's a phenomenal drummer. But as like a front person and songwriter, I just don't think he fits the mold as a singer, and I felt like we were still getting that. I remember Tear Drinker kind of being another like moment on this record. But yeah, I mean, it was just kind of, I felt like maybe Emperor of Sand was the point where I kind of like shut my brain off when it came to Mastodon. So I don't know if anyone else felt that way, but I'm gonna give this one another D. It just feels too little, too late, in my opinion. As you can see on my list, we have we have 4 in the A and S tier category, and then we have 4 in the C and D, and we got none in the Bs, which is hilarious. Mastodon has no middle of the road records. It's just like pretty not good or like incredible, in my opinion. But yeah, that's pretty funny to look at. We're split down the middle. And what does that really mean about Mastodon as a band? Does that mean that they're kind of half good, half not good? Does that affect anyone's like overall opinion of Mastodon, or what does that mean for a band to have 8 records and just half of them are amazing and half of them are so yuck and sterile and just kind of mark a just a painful chapter? I don't know. I mean, I still really appreciate Mastodon, and I really think that their older records are so timeless when it comes to metal. When Brent passed away, I mean, I was jamming to fucking everything that was on Blood Mountain and Crack the Sky and Remission and Leviathan, just like over and over again. And then I was like, I haven't checked out these newer ones in a while, and I did go back, and I was just like, Brent was so few and far between on those records. It was so Braun and Troy focused. I still think they're great vocalists. That's my tier list for Mastodon's records. We got 4 up top, 4 on the bottom. Let me know what you think. I'm just basically doing this because I want to know what other people think of Mastodon's discography. Don't get too upset about anything. Watch the show. If you haven't, go watch the podcast. Go watch Evan's reactions. Go watch my reactions. Go watch our podcast. Go watch our comedy clips that are on Instagram and TikTok. Subscribe. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Comment down below. Follow those social accounts and subscribe to our Patreon page. $5 a month to become a quitter. Get some bonus content. We just talked about the origins of the show, which was weird for me. I tried to convince Evan and JJ to get into the Deftones culture by showing them a playlist of like 8 or 14 Deftones songs. That was a rough night for the boys. It's not me, though. I was having a blast listening to the Deftones. But yeah, just, watch the show, support the show. We love you. My name's Nate. It's I Quit My Band. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.